Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online build video with me, Sherman. Today guys, we are taking a look at the Ranger DPS build for Murkmire. That's right, and you guys are going to be surprised because guess what the Ranger is? It is a bow build. Oh my god, a bow DPS build for Murkmire? Oh wow. Now, I know sounds a little crazy, but believe me when I say this, I didn't expect it to be this good, but it is actually really good build, and it works out really well. So let's go ahead and take a look at it, starting with the race. We are a Red Guard, we are a Warden. That is by hands down the best race and class combo for this. You can't beat it, so just letting you know now. As you can see, we do have 17k health, 29k stamina. We do have a low weapon damage, it looks like, but don't stress it. We do have to have a high stamina recovery for this build to work efficiently, so you can have a good rotation. If you do not have a high stamina recovery, this does not work, because you cannot keep the resources coming in. As you can see, our weapon critical is a 71%, and that is all the time, guys. And we have almost a 3,500 weapon damage, which is really good as well. Resistances are coming in kind of good with this because of the way the build's set up. We do use the Thief Mundus Stone. You have to use this. You cannot do the Warrior Mundus Stone. Otherwise, you only have a 61% critical, and a Khajiit would be better in that case. But you do need that Thief Mundus Stone. As you can see, we have Minor Berserk at all times as well. We also have Major Savagery at all times. We are using the Bear as our ultimate and as our spammable ultimate, basically, because this thing will be up pretty much every second rotation, so really good. And we are using Dubious Cameron Throne. There is another food you can get. It's a gold quality food that gives you health recovery, stam recovery, max health, and max stam. It's a little bit better than this by a marginal degree, but it would be better. It would bring you up to closer to 30k stamina, where you'd be better off. But let's go ahead and take a look at the gear. And the way the gear is set up, you cannot change it. It works this way for a reason. Now, you can change out one set for Reliquin if you want. And you can use a Maelstrom bow on the back bar. But please understand, it is not as effective. For some reason, it just doesn't... Maelstrom does help. But Reliquin or this setup, either way, is just... I don't know. Alright, so going over the sets, we are using the Slime Craw's Siege set. This is the set for this build. As you can see, it does give you weapon and spell crit. We want that weapon crit. But the two-piece is what we're really looking after. Gain Minor Berserk at all times, increasing your damage done by 8%. This build is all about maximizing your damage output. Not about increasing your other stuff like weapon damage and all that. It's about boosting all damage output. So we are using the Slime Crows for that. The next set we're using is Archer's Mind. Archer's Mind now is kind of a complicated set to get. You can only get it in DSA, but you can also buy it on the Guild Trader, which is nice. But as you can see, it gives you stam, gives you weapon crit, and then the 5-piece bonus increases your critical damage by 5%. And increases your critical damage by an additional 10% when attacking from sneak or invisibility. We're not worried about that 10% on the sneak or invisibility. We're worried about that 5%. This is where Reliquin comes into play. You would put Reliquin in this spot instead. Reliquin will boost your damage significantly with this build, but this set works as well. So this is good to start with, and then build up to getting Reliquin. Moving on, though, we are using the other one, Griffins. I know Griffins sounds a little strange. Wouldn't advancing Yodokai be better? No, Griffins is better because we cannot use Trap Beast at all on this build. If you try to use Trap Beast, you have to be up close and personal, and it's better to go dual wield and bow with this setup, because this is a ranged build completely. You want to use Griffins, and the Griffins is really good because it gives you weapon crit times 2 on the 2 and 3 piece. The 4-piece gives you weapon damage, and then the 5-piece. After dealing direct damage, you gain Minor Force and Minor Expedition, increasing your critical damage and movement speed by 10%. That critical damage is essential to this build. As you can see, we get 10% critical damage here, 5% critical damage here. That's 15% more than what you get base, which is 50% crit damage. We also have 22% in our champion points, or 20% in our champion points. So we actually go from there to 70%, 80%, 85% critical damage with this build. So we get a lot of critical damage. And then you add the 8% from this. And this does all damage. Light attacks, heavy attacks, non-crits, everything. This just boosts it all. Now, on the traits and the enchantments that you want to use on the armor, you want to use all divines, of course. But on the enchantments, you want to use 3 tri-stats here. This is going to get your health up to that 17k mark. Now, our stamina is coming in a little low at 29, but you're using Dubious Cameron Throne. So you need this tri-stats on the bigger pieces to give you the extra health you need. Otherwise, you got to put a health enchant in here somewhere. And not only 1, but 2. So it's better to go with this. And this works out really well. Now, moving on to the jewelry, we are running 2 infused, 1 bloodthirsty. So 2 infused jewelry on the rings, bloodthirsty on the necklace. But we are using 2 weapon damage here. And here we're using a stamina recovery. Remember what I was saying about, in order for this build to work, you need to have good stamina recovery. The reason why you need good stamina recovery is because of the rotation. You burn, it's either you're burning through a lot of resources and doing a lot of heavy attacks, or you trade off and do less heavy attacks and do more return. So when you have your power pot going, you're going to get extra stamina recovery. Now, a stamina pot will be fine for this build. That's all you'll really need, because you have savagery already from having the Fighters Guild Expert Hunter on your bar. You have the Major Brutality. You have all that stuff already given to you. So power pots like this aren't necessary, but Dubious Cameron Throne or the other food that I was talking about is essential. Now, the reason for the extra recovery, though, on this is because we have no sets that give us extra recovery. And we really need that stamina recovery and that stamina return to be consistent. Because if we don't have consistent stamina return, we're really bad off. That's the other reason why I chose Redguard for this. Wood Elf works out, too. Khajiit's okay. Khajiit's with the extra crit means that you can run a different Mundus Stone. So you can run a Khajiit, and you can drop the Thief Mundus Stone and go with the Warrior Mundus Stone if you wanted to. But you want that high crit for this build. So going to the weapons, we are running 2 infused Griffin's bows. The first bow is using the absorbed stamina. You really need this absorbed stamina here for, again, sustain. It's all about sustain with the bow build. So having good sustain, and this gives you some decent sustain. This gives you 461 extra stamina every 3 seconds. So that's really good. You're getting like 200 and something every second. And then on the back bar, we are using a weapon damage enchant, infused bow, to give us extra on that as well. So really good overall with that. Now, moving on to the skills. Now, this is where things get a little tricky with this build, and this is why I chose Warden. So, first off, make sure you get all your class passives. This is very important. Even though you're not using a lot of the skills, you still want those class passives. Next up, bow passives. You want all the bow passives, especially like Hawkeye. Dealing light attack damage with a light attack increases the damage of your bow abilities by 5% for 5 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. So you want a light attack in between everything, because there's going to be certain times where you're going to get a couple 5 stacks of light attacks, and you're going to be able to do a powerful heavy attack. And I'll show you guys where that's going to happen. So moving on to the armor. Light armor, you don't really need the light armor passives. It helps. But you really want the medium armor passives and the heavy armor passives. Moving on to soul magic. I do like these for playing in dungeons and trials because you get empty soul gems. This allows you to fill them on a 10% chance. And this allows you to revive without a soul gem every 1 hour. Moving on to the Fighters Guild. Fighters Guild, we are going to be using all the passives, so Slayer and this are very important. Slayer because you are running Evil Hunter on both bars, and then you're running Silver Shards on the back bar. So on the back bar, you actually get a little bit more weapon damage, but that's good because this is where your lethal arrow is, and you're going to be keeping this pretty much cast every rotation. So Mage's Guild, Persuasive Will, of course. Undaunted, you want the Undaunted passives. And then Alliance War, you can use Caltrops with this build if you want to on the back bar. I tested it, it works out, but again, it's kind of a funky one with this setup. So you can use Razor Caltrops. I'm using the Silver Shards instead because it does do a lot more damage. So Redguard because they do get 9% max stam, or stam recovery, they get 10% max stam, and Adrenaline Rush. When you deal damage with a melee attack, you gain 792 stamina. We don't do any melee attacks, so unfortunately it doesn't apply to us, but because bow attacks aren't considered melee damage, they're considered ranged for some reason. Medicinal use on Alchemy, and then Provisioning, Gourmand, and Connoisseur. That's why I said Wood Elf works better for this, because they get higher stam recovery. With the way this is set up, you end up with a lot more, but you end up with a lot less stamina. You have like 28k stamina or something like that, and it's kind of wonky, but it still works. I am going to show you guys this real quick on the CP, so we can do that. Now, my CP is set up kind of funny, but I did this on purpose. This is a more well-rounded build. So we have 66 in Ironclad. We have 11 in the medium armor focus and spell shield. The reason why Ironclad gives us 22% damage reduction. With the 11 points into both of these, and the way our CP, our resistances are normally, we actually end up with the same amount of mitigation if we had this at 81 and nothing into these. With us putting these 11 points into both of these, we end up with the same amount of mitigation. Plus, it gives us greater physical and spell resist baseline, so really good. Moving on over here, we have 31 into Thick Skin. This reduces damage taken from damage over time effects by 13%. 66 into Hardy, reducing damage from physical poison and disease damage by 13%. We have 66 into Elemental Defender, reducing Flame Frost, Shock, and magic damage by 13%. Moving on over here, we do have 19 into Quick Recovery. This gives us an extra 5% healing. If you don't need this, feel like you need this, you can put it the rest of it into Thick Skin. This will give you like 50 some points, and you can take 2 out of these, 1 out of here, 1 out of here, and put it into this. And it'll put you at where you need to be, like at a decent spot with this. I think you end up with like a 15 or 16% then. But moving on over here, we have 56 into Warlord, reducing your break free cost by 20%. We have 23 into Sprinter, reducing our sprint cost by 14%. We have 23 into Bashing Focus. You're not really going to use this, so you don't need it, but I like to have something for bashing in case an enemy gets close, and I can bash them and then back off. So moving on, we have 65 into Mooncalf. This increases your stam recovery by 13%. Now, you can take this 23 out of here and take this up to 75 if you want. That'll leave you points left over where you can put into other things. Like I said, again, like if you want, but you don't really need to. So the 13% really helps out. We do have 43 into Tenacity, increasing our stamina return over fully charged heavy attacks by 10%. You can, again, take this down to 43 and take this up to 76 with taking out of here. This will give you a greater return on this for having that 75 points or 76 points, or you can just take the 23 out of here and put it in here. This way you get more return on your heavy attacks, which really helps because you still heavy attack even with this build in rotation. We do have 4 into Befoul because we had some extra points left over. I decided this was the best place for them. 56 into Tumbling, reducing our dodge roll cost by 20%. And then moving into the blue tree, this is where things get really crazy because we have 35 into Physical Weapon Expert. This increases our light and heavy attacks with our bow by 20%. We have 40 into Mastered Arms. This increases your direct damage done by 16%. Now, you can take out of here and take this up to 56 if you want. That works, but this actually works better damage-wise then putting this up to there and having this at like 16. So, moving on, we have 56 into Mighty. This increases your physical poison disease damage done by 12%. We have 66 into Thaumaturge. This increases damage done with damage over time effects by 22%. Now, you can take this up to 81, but it doesn't give you that much more, or make you that much more effective, but you can do that. We do have 56 into Precise Strikes. This increases our critical damage and critical healing done by 20%. That 20% with the base of 50 is 70%. With the Minor Force, we have 80%, and then with the from the Griffin, and then the other one, the other 5% from our Archer's Mind takes us up to 85% critical damage. Now, Reliquin will give us 5% more damage for crit and non-crit against dungeon and trial enemies, which helps out a lot. But I actually found that the Archer's Mind kind of gives us the same. The nice thing about Reliquin, though, is it can be applied to targets at ranged. So Reliquin does help a lot. And it does boost the critical damage. So that's why I say Reliquin is the other set you can run in place of Archer's Mind. But Archer's Mind is a good starting setup. Alright, so that's it for the CP. And we have 17 in here to give us some extra physical pin. We do have the Subterranean Assault, but you're going to need this little bit of extra to kind of push you over when you're playing in a trial. Dungeons, this build is great. Alright, so now, gonna go over the skills real quick so you guys can see this. Starting with the first bar, I skipped the skills. I just wanted to go over the passives and all that stuff before I get to the skills, because this is where things really kind of stand out, and you'll see why I chose this. And the other thing I need to do is I need to use my pot so you guys can see the damage of these skills. So starting with Subterranean Assault, as you can see, this thing does a ton of damage up front. It also applies Major Breach, or Major Fracture, sorry, reducing the enemy's physical resistance by 5,280 for 5 seconds. Now, the way this rotation works is you're going to cast this, do Poison Injection, your next ability. As you can see, lots of damage up front, lots of damage over time, but the damage over time deals up to 260% more damage to enemies under 50% health. So once you get them below 50% health, this thing is going to do a ton of damage. And it lasts for 10 seconds. So you're going to cast this, Light Attack, drop your Poison Injection, Light Attack, go into Acid Spray. Now, why Acid Spray? Again, does good damage up front. It also has a CC, reducing movement speed, but it's that next bit of poison damage over 6 seconds. Now, I think I lost my potion. Yes, I did. So this thing actually does 6k damage, actually 7 when you get in the extra weapon damage from the back bar. So this thing does 7k damage over 6 seconds, so it does a decent amount of damage. The next ability we have is our Cutting Dive. Now we have this because this Cliff Racer does 9k damage here, but it actually does 10k damage against the enemy on normal. On crits, this thing can hit up to 20k. This is our spammable, and I'll get to that when we do the rotation. Next up, we do have Evil Hunter. This is here mainly for the major savagery, but you don't want to put another skill in this place. I tried to put more skills on the bar to try to increase the DPS. You don't want more skills. This works better. The next ability we have is Wild Guardian. This thing is a monster of DPS. So as you can see, the swipes do 2,683, and then it can do a bite, dealing like 10k damage, and then stunning them for 2 seconds. Now the swipes are normal attacks. The bite is the severe attack, and it does a bite every. So it does swipes, bite, swipes, bite. But it's the ultimate part that does a lot of damage. So this thing, when you use it, it does 13,628 physical damage and deals 100% more damage when enemies are below 25%. Now, your bear shares your CP. So our CP, because of the way we have set up in the blue tree, We also get Butcher. So it increases your light and heavy attack damage by 5%. So they get 5% more damage on their bite and swipes, and 25% more on their ultimate. But if they crit, they also gain all of our crit bonuses. So they get 85% critical damage. So this is why this build works so well. So next up, onto the back bar, we are using Lethal Arrow. Now, Lethal Arrow is a very effective skill. It does really good damage. It does poison damage, and applies the poison status effect. So no matter what, it will always apply that poison status effect. But it also does that poison damage up front. On top of that, it does apply Major Defile, so it's really good. This is really good for when you're fighting the Witch at the end of Dire Frost Keep, or you're fighting, there's a couple other enemies in the game that have really good, amazing heals. This really helps with that. But there's a little bit more to it than that. It's the critical damage this thing can do. This thing can hit upwards to 26k. I've had it hit up to 32k damage. So, and that's because of all the weapon damage and everything, which, again, because of the pods, this goes up to 13k. You add another 500 weapon damage almost to it, this thing goes up to 14k, almost 15k weapon poison damage. And then if you have enough applied to them, like debuffs and stuff, you actually can get this thing to hit for insane damage. Next on our bar, we have Endless Hail. We have this here because it does really good damage over time. It's a really good dot. Next ability on our bar, like I said, you can swap this out with Caltrops if you want, but you're going to find this does a little bit more damage because this thing's coming in at 7,183 physical damage. This is Silver Shards. This fires multiple arrows in a cone. Now, if you look, it says fires up to 5 additional bolts at other enemies near the initial target for 47% less damage. So the main target's going to take 7,183, and if it crits, this thing can hit up to 14k. Then you get all those other targets beside it are going to take 47% less damage. So if you hit for 14k, they're taking 6k damage because it's going to crit if it crits on them. So it's a really good ability. It's nice for crowd control and stuff, but Caltrops does help. But again, it's up to you what you want to use. I prefer this, even though I think Caltrops and it run about the same in cost. So this is more expensive than this. Alright, next up we have our Bullnetch. We have this here for the Major Brutality and the Stamina Return. You get 5,376 stamina to you over 27 seconds, not for 27 seconds. It's over that. So you get that. It comes out to like 100 and something, or almost 400 and something every second. So it's pretty crazy. Next up, Evil Hunter. Yes, you need this here as well because of that. Now, somebody said was talking to me and said, why don't you use the Birds of Prey? This gives you the Minor Berserk because it only applies to one bar. With the monster set, we get it on both bars, and then with the Evil Hunter, we get the Major Savagery on both bars. Like I said, this build's kind of funky, but it works out really well. And then again, we do have the bear. So now that you guys have seen that, I want to show you guys this. This is one of the rotations I did earlier. Now, I know the DPS seems kind of low, but I do want you to see this. Our critical damage was more than our regular damage. And then if you look down here at our damage of our abilities, now I will do a full rotation here in a minute, but 3,730 weapon damage, 3,664 normal minimum, and then our maximum. And then if you look at our weapon crit, 71% straight across the board, doesn't change. Now this doesn't count for minor force or the minor crit bonus we get for Archer's Mind. So it's not going to show our total crit damage here. But as you can see, this is showing 6,922 on the physical pin. That's what we have. So that's because of Subterranean Assault and that other the other 1,000 something we have. But look at some of these things damage. Our bear does 33k damage on its power attacks. When it does its crushing swipe, it does 18k damage. When it does its bite, it does 5k damage. This thing does a lot of damage all the time. Our light attacks are coming in at almost 9k. Poison injections coming in at 12. Lethal arrows coming in at 26 here. And this is on a, now this was on a 3 million. So I'm going to show you guys this rotation on a 6 million dummy. It will take me a little bit to kill it, but yeah, it's going to be kind of crazy. And look at our heavy attacks, 17k on our heavy attacks. So, all right, so now let's get into this thing in action. So the first thing you want to do, and I'm going to have to go over to this other skeleton to show you the rotation. So first thing, you always want to keep this up. Your netch has to be up 100% of the time. You always start on the back bar too. Start with lethal arrow, endless hail, this, swap bars, do the assault, light attack. Now you're going to light attack in between everything. Light attack, poison injection, acid spray, light attack. Then cutting dive, you're going to do 2 cutting dives, light attack in between both, drop your sub assault, switch bars, do your lethal arrow, because your lethal arrow will hit before that, then do your endless hail again, but remember the light attack in between all this, and you want to keep up your netch all the time. Now you only need to reapply your netch every other rotation, so you want to do that. Also, when your bear is off cooldown, use it. You want that ultimate. You want it to drop its ultimate. And now I just wanted you guys to see this. I'm gonna sub assault. Oops, never mind. I was gonna sub assault and then have my bear do his thing, but we'll just go over here and do the full rotation now. On this guy. So the nice thing about Netch is Netch doesn't cost you anything, and every time you recast it, it will heal you a little bit, and it gives you minor toughness. So to you. So it will boost you up to 19k health. Now, if you wanted to go all stamina enchants in here, you will go up to 17k health, and it'll pretty much be like that all the time because you're using this every every 10 seconds or whatever, or 20 seconds. You're going to be recasting it. So, all right, but here we go. Let's start this off. I got a heavy attack because my bear is being stupid. Oops, I forgot my sub. That one's fine. Now, the thing that you have to also understand, remember how I told you guys, like, you want to make sure that you do 2 of those birds? Because you're going to light attack, do 2 birds, and then you're gonna do sub assault. So when you do your sub assault, what's going to happen is your sub assault's going to give you 3 light attack or 4 light attacks before you do that. So you're going to stack up your marksman thing. Come on, potion. Oh, I did too many there. And yes, you do have to heavy attack as well, otherwise you cannot pull off the rotation perfectly. So usually when I get to this point, I'll do like 1 bird, and that way, when you're in between the birds, you can also, like, instead of doing 2 birds, you just do a heavy attack, and then drop sub, switch bars, go right into this. So that way you keep up that subterranean assault even when you're on the back bar. And it keeps sub up pretty much 100% of the time. And the only reason why you have potions is to give you resources back. That's it. You're not using them for power pots or anything else. And I'm screwing up my rotation now. And I keep doing my natch too, and I don't need to. Come on, beard. There you go. And then when you get the enemy below 25% health, you want to skip using the shards, because you're going to want to just dish out as much damage as you can. Oops, I did the shards. And it allows you to keep the rotation a little better. But, I mean, 20k, and I made a lot of mistakes, guys, and I was talking. So, I can get it up a little bit higher, but I do want you guys to look at this again. So minor toughness, minor berserk, minor brutality, or major brutality, minor force. You can keep it up 100% along with minor expedition, and you can also keep your weapon damage enchant up 100% if you're doing a really good rotation. I'm not super great at this, so I'm still learning. I'm still trying to figure that out. But Bullnetch, you want to keep it up 100%. Major savagery, I don't know why it says it was up 89, because it should be up 100% because it's part of an armor set. Major endurance, you want to keep this up as best you can, close to 100% as possible. And then your Hawkeyes, like I said, you're going to get a lot of that, and your subterranean assaults are going to really help. So the problem, though, again, comes from the stamina, like how much you have going out versus how much you have coming in. As you can see here, base regeneration 847 a second with 188 from the Bullnetch a second, and then 172 on the stamina absorb, 150 from restore stamina, and then the heavy attack restores a little. But it's because you have so much going out versus coming in, and that's the hard part, is trying to keep that maintained. Because with a bow, you don't have the same opportunities like you do with a dual wield or a any other things. So this, you really need that stamina recovery because it takes a long time to do a bow heavy attack. So, but yeah, I mean, for me, I'm saying it's not too bad, the damage here. I mean, 26,000 on lethal arrow, to 18,000 base. If you look at just the base damage here, the average, and then you look up here, the average damage, then our critical damage. Like, we still do way more critical damage than we do average damage. And we do a lot more critical damage. And if you're using Reliquins, Perfected Reliquin is going to give you 200 extra damage stacked 20 times. So it's going to give you a lot more, plus it's going to give you 5% more damage versus enemies in dungeons. Now, this build is great for playing in open world. It's great for playing in dungeons. It's really good in trials if you're using Reliquin. If you're using Reliquin, the damage on this thing is insane. So I think I can get it up to 24k, 25k on my rotations with Reliquin, because you stack Reliquin up to 20 times. 200 damage. Or 10 times, I think. Let's see. I haven't done it. I wasn't going to do it with this, but I'll just show you it. And especially if you have perfected Reliquin. So you get weapon crit, you get the Slayer, which is equivalent to the 5% critical damage, but this is critical and non-critical. You're getting 5%. You're getting 800, another thing of crit, stamina, and then your light and heavy attacks apply a stack of harmful winds to your target for 5 seconds, which deal 275 physical damage every 1 second and can stack up to 20 times. And yes, you can keep 20 stacks of Reliquin on a boss. No problems with this. So, in fact, we should probably just do that real quick. I'm going to go ahead and just do that. I'm going to go ahead and prop this out, pop it on. I'm not even going to worry about upgrading it because we still have a 70% crit. And I'll just show you guys really quick this with Reliquin. Oops. Oh, that's good. Really? Go ahead and do another heavy attack in there, drop that. Made a mistake there. Alright, there we go. So not quite as good as I'd like, but Reliquin was going off quite a bit. It doesn't do a ton of damage, but it does add up to a lot of damage after over time. Let's see, Reliquin, where are you hiding? It's not even showing. But again, you just basically want to keep all these things up a lot. With Reliquin, like I said, if you have it fully buffed, fully maxed out, it do a considerable amount of damage. But it does help apply a lot more damage when you have a good rotation and you can pull off that good rotation. So, I don't know why it wasn't working as well as I'd like. Maybe it had something to do with my stamina, or the fact that it wasn't doing 300 damage every second for 20 max of 20 stacks. So not what I wanted to see. But still, this thing, it does work, guys. You have to be in a good group to make it work really well, especially when you have when you have a lot more physical pin on the enemy, like a crusher and the major breach, major fracture, or major fracture on there, and you have crusher, and you have, you know, whatever else you can get, muster, and this thing can really push some damage out. But again, it's not going to be, you're not going to be breaking no 54k with it or 60k with it. At the most, I would say for somebody like me, maybe 32,000. For somebody who's a skilled, experienced player, somebody like Outcast or, you know, the Asian God or whatever, they might be able to pull 40 with it. If they're really like good and have a good rotations going, they can probably pull that, but I'm not that good. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the build, guys. I hope you guys like it. I like the Ranger build. I think it's a really good build for playing in dungeons, personally. That's where I prefer it, and that's why I like to use Archer's Mind, is it works out really well in there. And with that, you usually have about a 9 to 10k penetration on the enemy, with the, you know, including the tank, all that stuff. You can usually get pretty decent, like I said, pin with this, and the setup's great. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. As I said, the like button, please hit it. That'd be great. If you guys can want to see more videos by me, or just want to see other things by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, thanks for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.